this is the biggest telco outage in Australian history.
We're still waiting to hear back from Optus.
We are still waiting for a response from Optus.
With no significant word from Optus at this point.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch and to a PR masterclass in what not to do. With Optus still making headlines as it tries to recover from last week's disaster, which left 10 million customers and 400,000 businesses offline, sparked a government inquiry and saw it mauled by the media with front pages like these.
Dropped us.
Flopped us.
No Optus.
Which is exactly what customers woke up to last Wednesday, with no mobile, internet or landline services. The blackout hitting half the country and perfectly timed for breakfast TV.
Reports are coming in from here in Brisbane, on the Gold Coast, as well as in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Hobart, Perth, as well as parts of regional New South Wales.
And in Melbourne, it was even worse.
Tegan, the city's train network is also down.
Yeah, this is huge, Shervo. Every single train coming in or out of the city this morning is currently cancelled.
Half an hour after that, with the country still in a black hole, Natalie Barr was telling Sunrise viewers...
You're not imagining things. It's affecting 10 million users. That's from coast to coast. We have reached out to Optus this morning. They are still yet to get back to us.
And that was the company's first PR mistake, not fronting up to the media to quickly explain what was going on, because it left reporters to hit the road in search of angry customers.
What happened?
I don't know. Good question.
By asking you guys, media, you guys should know what's going on.
We don't know yet.
And that was PR mistake number 2, with Optus allowing the story to take on a life of its own, with one crisis manager telling Mumbrella...
Optus didn't just fail to control the narrative, they ignored it completely. The one saving grace for Optus? Most of their customers didn't see any of this, as they still had no service.
But they could watch TV, where telco experts were being asked to speculate about the root cause.
Well, obviously it's something pretty major because it's taken out the whole country. It's gone on now for 7 hours, though. That is high.
7 and counting, and they don't know what it is or how long it'll take to fix.
The face of Optus really needs to be out right now.
That face being Kelly Bayer Rosmarin. But it wasn't until almost 7 hours into the crisis that the Optus boss did her first media interview via WhatsApp to say...
And we're really, really sorry that this outage has occurred.
After which her job was to reassure the country that all was sorted.
Do they know what happened, though?
Who's they?
The team that you've got working on it.
No, our team is still pursuing every possible avenue.
As business columnist Elizabeth Knight wrote in the Nine papers...
The general rule of crisis management is for a company's leadership to be constant, ubiquitous and out in front. The last thing you want is for a hostile pack of politicians to be conveying to the public their version of updates.
That is a reference to the Federal Communications Minister, Michelle Rowland, who was fronting the media mid-morning to fill the void.
I think Optus needs to make sure they step up and communicate with people. Customers are clearly frustrated about it, and Optus should respond to that accordingly.
The company's response to that was to do a second radio interview with Sydney's 2GB. But the Optus boss was not scoring any home runs.
Why were you missing in action this morning?
Actually, we've had messages out from the beginning. We have messages on our website.
Yeah, but people have got no internet, so they can't access the information.
And to make matters worse, if that was possible, the Daily Mail has scored this sneaky scoop.
Bad optics.
How Optus CEO's $15 million mansion was spruced up for a photo shoot amid the telco's darkest hour.
Bad optics indeed. But the Optus boss denies her handling of the crisis was, quote, a clown show, telling the Financial Review that no media soundbite could explain the technical reasons for the phone outage. But amid a crisis of this magnitude, the pressure on CEOs to front the media is intense and unforgiving. And ultimately, the Optus boss was forced to do that, sitting down 12 hours after the crisis began to face the cameras for the 6 p.m. bulletins, which, of course, were full of stories about small businesses being crippled.
North Sydney barber Jacob Axa was forced to shut up shop.
I've had to turn back about 10 customers today. Basically, can't use the register, so I can't charge customers.
To which Rosmarin replied,
I'm disappointed that a barber couldn't do haircuts today. That seems like one of the few things you can do without connectivity.
Yes, in the effort to clean up the mess, the Optus CEO only made matters worse by bagging out one of her customers, which was PR mistake number 3. With news.com.au contacting Jake the barber and getting this response.
If she could do her job, I can definitely do my job, and I don't appreciate getting bagged out to someone who can't do their own job.
And with the Singaporean owners of Optus in Sydney last week to watch the PR disaster unfold, we'll see if the Optus chief manages to keep that job. But now, to Wales and wind turbines, and culture warriors switching sides.
A battle is brewing in Wollongong. Locals gathering today adamant a planned wind farm off their coast should not go ahead.
Campaigning to preserve their slice of paradise. Hundreds of people gather under the spring sun to say no to a federal government proposal for a wind farm off the coast of Wollongong.
You've got to say bugger off, Bowen. That's my suggestion.
Energy Minister Chris Bowen is soon to decide whether a section of the Pacific Ocean south of Sydney will be given the green light for offshore wind farm development. And as community consultation continues, opposition has been running hot.
Wind farm rally draws hundreds to hear speakers from across the community condemn plans to place wind turbines offshore from the Illawarra.
The proposal to allow wind farms is backed by Labor and the unions, who are expected to bring hundreds of jobs to the Illawarra region. And it's welcomed by those who want clean, renewable energy to combat global warming. But many locals aren't happy about what the turbines might look like, what it might mean for fishing and tourism, and even for mornings.
Offshore wind turbines will block the sunrise. Illawarra consultation takes a bizarre twist.
And what it might mean for the whales that cruise up and down the coast every winter from Antarctica to Carve in Queensland. 6 weeks ago, No Offshore Wind Farms for the Illawarra had a post on its Facebook page which claimed the massive turbines could kill up to 400 whales per year, attributing this warning to a University of Tasmania study published in a respected scientific journal called Marine Policy. But was it true? As the Illawarra Flame soon revealed, it wasn't.
Whale of a tale proves to be fake news.
With Associate Professor Michelle Voyer from the University of Wollongong's Blue Energy Futures Lab telling the reporter,
it was completely fabricated. There was no such paper.
Since then, the Sydney Morning Herald and ABC have also lined up to debunk the killer claim, with the ABC quoting the Editor-in-Chief of Marine Policy, Professor Quentin Hanich, saying the study does not exist and there is no scientific evidence that wind farms do kill whales. And backing him is Greenpeace, which said 2 weeks ago,
there are no studies anywhere in the world that show wind farms killing whales.
The Illawarra Facebook post was soon taken down with an admission it was wrong. But has its unmasking as fake news stopped others from spreading the fears? Certainly not. As The Guardian reports, the message is still getting out on posters and social media.
For weeks, an image of a beached whale with turbines in the background has appeared on a roadside billboard in Port Stephens, north of Newcastle, under the words, "Stop Port Stephens Offshore Wind Farms."
And last month, opposition leader Peter Dutton was in Port Stephens, urging locals to save the whales.
When you look at, the whales and the mother and the calf that we saw out there, the dolphins, all of that is at risk because there's no environmental consideration of what these huge wind turbines, 260, 280 metres out of the water, will mean for that wildlife and for the environment.
And Dutton's newfound passion for marine mammals is matched by The Australian, whose environment editor Graham Lloyd has warned,
in a country that loves its beaches and oceanic way of life, dead whales are never going to be a poster child for sustainable living.
And on Sky News, a pod of hosts and guests have echoed these fears, including Rowan Dean.
Not only is it outrageously expensive, but it will kill our whales.
Prue McSween.
They're prepared to destroy the environment to save the environment. That's what they're saying they want to do.
And coal champion Matt Canavan.
Well, Peter, I never thought I'd be coming on your show and desperately arguing to save the whales. I didn't think that universe, those planets would align.
Offshore wind farms have been around for more than 30 years, but evidence that they're killing whales, such as it is far more recent. And it comes from the US, where a similar debate is raging, as Sky's Andrew Bolt explained.
Last weekend, another dead whale was found on America's eastern coast. That's the 60th since December 1. And a new documentary this week called Thrown to the Wind points blame at the many, many new offshore wind farms off that coast.
Thrown to the Wind is the work of the controversial American environmentalist and former PR man Michael Schellenberger, who wrote the best-selling book Apocalypse Never: Why Environmental Alarmism Hurts Us All, which has been described by one expert reviewer as abounding in bad science and bad arguments. Much loved by conservatives and climate sceptics, Schellenberger is a passionate campaigner for nuclear power to replace fossil fuels. And that has fellow nuclear lovers who champion his work in something of a bind, as News Corp columnist Tim Blair mused to Chris Kenny.
At this point, do we all just switch sides? All the right-wing people like myself who've always made fun of the whale people, do we now say protect the whales? And do our lefty friends, as they've previously done in the case of birds that were killed or are killed in enormous numbers by wind turbines, do they switch sides and say, whales, what are you worrying about whales for?
As Tim Blair points out, the battle lines have been redrawn and the armies have switched sides here and in the US, with culture warriors like ex-Fox News host Tucker Carlson suddenly going all greeny and getting worked up about
massive offshore wind turbines that appear to be killing large numbers of whales.
And trumping his concern is former US President Donald Trump, who told a recent rally,
"There has only been, listen to this, one such whale killed off the coast of South Carolina in the last 50 years. But on the other hand, their windmills are causing whales to die in numbers never seen before." You wouldn't see it once a year. Now they're coming up on a weekly basis. The windmills are driving them crazy.
The BBC has fact-checked Trump's claim and concluded bluntly,
there is no evidence to back Mr. Trump's suggestion that offshore wind turbines are killing whales.
And CNN has reached the same conclusion. There's also no evidence, according to the experts, that surveying and building offshore wind farms is causing whales to die. America's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has repeatedly stated
there are no known links between recent large whale mortalities and ongoing offshore wind surveys.
And the US Marine Mammal Commission agrees, making it
the third federal agency to reject a link between the deaths and the offshore wind energy industry, despite a growing narrative among offshore wind opponents that probing the ocean floor to prepare for wind turbine projects is killing whales.
But will that stop the media spreading the fears? I think you know the answer to that. And is it the wind farms or the whales they're really worried about? I think you know the answer to that one too. But now, to the murder of a young woman in Sydney, and a shocking example of how AI can't yet be trusted to bring you the news.
Dead tonight, 21-year-old water polo coach Lily James, bludgeoned with a hammer in a gymnasium change room.
The actual scene itself was quite confronting. I don't want to expand on that any further.
Wanted tonight is this man, 24-year-old sportsman Paul Tyson.
Paul Tyson was Lily James's ex-boyfriend, and the unfolding story was duly covered by many outlets, including The Guardian, and then republished on the Microsoft News, or MSN, homepage, along with a poll which asked, what do you think is the reason behind the woman's death? With readers asked to choose between three options: murder, accident or suicide. Yes, really, a pop quiz, which is not just beyond distasteful, but ridiculous considering how she died. And The Guardian, as you can imagine, was furious, with the editor of The Guardian Australia, Lenore Taylor, telling the Full Story podcast,
obviously this is incredibly distressing for anybody affected by that death. It was also very distressing for our reporters because there were comments from readers of the MSN site who thought that we'd put the poll there.
So how on earth did it happen? Well, the poll was put there by AI, which has been generating the news at Microsoft since 2020, as you can see from this Guardian story. Until then, Microsoft had about 800 journalists working for it. But when the robots took over, entire teams of writers and moderators were dismissed, as CNN told us last week.
Did you ever think you'd have a situation where you'd be replaced by AI?
No, not in a million years. But here we are.
So, how many journalists are left? Microsoft would not tell us. It claims its AI content is overseen by a human, but if there was anybody there, they must have been asleep when that poll got through. And it's not the first mistake that's been made. Back in August, Microsoft had to pull this AI-generated travel article, headed to Ottawa, here's what you shouldn't miss, which listed Ottawa's food bank as a top tourist attraction for hungry visitors. And last year, a New York news site called Futurism compiled a list of MSN stories with headlines like
Fishermen catch mermaid creature in their nets.
Party stops as giant UFO flies directly over it.
With the journalist rightly pointing out,
needless to say, if any of these stories were remotely credible, they'd have completely upended the scientific establishment.
So, where does that leave us? Waiting for the next time. MSN have disabled the auto-generated polls and are looking into how it happened, telling us
a poll should not have appeared alongside an article of this nature, and we are taking steps to help prevent this kind of error from reoccurring in the future.
But do they plan on bringing back some of those human eyeballs to stop it from happening again? Or will they just upgrade the AI? The spokesperson for Microsoft, a real one we think, declined to answer that question. That's all from us for tonight. You can read a full statement from Microsoft on our website. Don't forget, Media Bites on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. But for now, until next week, goodbye.